Hi, welcome to How to D&D. My name is Fred Weller and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. And guess what? Fred is here to save the day. Fear not, I will help you with your game. Death House Dungeon Encounter Disasters. Wow, Curse of Strahd Dungeon Master Guide. There must be something in this, right? There must be something. Absolutely, of course there is. This is a Dungeon Master Guide for the Curse of Strahd adventure. If you are a player playing in this adventure, there will be spoilers. Please do not stick around. Go watch one of my other videos. I have a player guide for the Curse of Strahd. You are welcome to go and watch that to your heart's content. But this is definitely not the right video for you. So don't stay around. You will spoil things for yourself. I have a bonus tip at the end of this video that you should find fairly useful, so stick around near the end and I will let you know what you can do to solve many of the issues you may come across. I want you to also consider checking out my Death House Encounter breakdown video or the Death House Encounter advice video. This deals with the upper levels rather than the dungeon level, and rather than turn it into two videos, I didn't want to make one video. I just wanted to make two videos so that you could sort of eat or consume what you needed when you needed it, rather than try to do all of it all at once, which can be a bit difficult sometimes. The character level advancement by milestones on page 211 is poorly conceived madness. I've already said this, I will continue to say this, and nobody can really change my mind on this one because I keep hearing about all of the horrible things that happen with the Death House. And I've seen it happen and I've experienced it, so I do have some idea of what I'm talking about. Once the players explore the main house at level 1, they can now enter the dungeon. That's right, they can go below the house levels into the dungeon of all places. But guess what? The party doesn't have to enter the dungeon. They could simply leave the house. Now I know that would probably screw up somebody who has prepared material, but honestly, it's the smartest choice for a party of players, not to have their characters try to go too deep into the house. Players' characters advance to level 2 once they gain access to the secret stairs in Area 18, which is the storage room, and then they can go and investigate the disastrously deadly dungeon below. Like I said, I don't advise that you force players to do this. It's not really a lot of fun for them, and in fact it will probably generate additional work for you more than make it fun for you. So don't push the issue if you don't have to. My recommendation is to adjust your monsters, reduce encounter difficulty, use imperfect monster tactics rather than using optimal monster tactics, remove some of the monsters completely from this adventure. Heck, in some cases, you may even want to consider removing the dungeon completely and have nothing down there. Have it filled in with rocks or something like that. Don't even include it in the adventure itself. Now, I know that sounds like you've just missed out on a whole lot, but really the top level does a lot of the things that you need it to do. You don't have to roll through the whole thing. Starting the Death House at level 3 is recommended, but this guide assumes that your characters are playing at level 2 when they enter the dungeon level. Okay, so even though I would suggest you start at level 3 when you get into the house, I'm assuming that you're trying to play it as true to the adventure as possible, and so that's why I'm giving you advice with regard to level 2 rather than level 3. Okay, first encounter. Area 23D is Elizabeth's crypt. It has a swarm of insects. These are centipedes. It's a challenge rating half. It's on page 338 of the monster manual. Now, when you first see this thing, you're thinking, oh, okay, that might be interesting. Look, honestly, this battle is nothing to a group of players. It's absolutely nothing to an individual character. I suggest ditching this encounter completely. It's quite boring. I wouldn't even bother with it at all. So very easy advice to apply. You don't have to do very much to that. Okay, next one, encounter 2. This is area 28, the larder. It has a grick. This is a challenge rating 2. It's on page 173 of the monster manual. Okay, so the problem with gricks is there's always something that can go wrong with a grick, but To be fair, this is a hard to easy combat for 3 to 5 characters. So it's not something you need to freak out too much about. As a general rule, a gricks can be a tough fight, but they're not going to make things sort of go down badly unless somebody rolls really good or really badly. This can be a tricky battle for a small group of players due to the monsters having damage resistance to bludgeoning, slashing, and piercing damage from a non-magical weapon. Now, I'm saying this with regard to a group of, say, 3 players. If you have, say, 5 players, it's not really going to be an issue. That's just usually the case. The smaller the group, the higher the risk. The grick can take down a level 2 character in 1 round, so that's something to bear in mind. So you need to have enough players playing characters at your table to allow those people who go down to be brought back up and back into play with those players who haven't gone down. That's why it's not going to be a very good encounter for a small group, because they really will struggle with this. I recommend removing the monster for a small group. If you have a small group of players, you've only got a group of 3, just remove the grick completely. But if you say have between 4 and 5 or more players, then I wouldn't worry about it. It should be fine. Okay, encounter 3. This is area 29. The ghoulish encounter has 4 ghouls. Oh my gosh. They are challenge rating 1. They are on page 148 of the monster manual. I don't like ghouls very much, and you'll see very shortly as I explain what's going to go on here. This is an extremely deadly to deadly combat for 3 to 5 player characters. That's right, extremely deadly to deadly combat. It really doesn't matter how many players you have at your table, it's still going to be a really nasty fight. So why the heck did they put it in here? Well, I don't know. I have no idea. Ghouls can paralyze their victims with their claws. And so if you have enough ghouls in the pack, then you could wind up with a good chunk of your party lying on the ground or basically doing nothing for a whole round while they wait to be able to make that saving throw. I recommend removing at least 2 ghouls. Remove 2 ghouls for this encounter. Rather than have them face 4, 2 is enough. Okay. Right, so for encounter 4, this is area 31, the Dark Lord's Shrine. It has 5 shadows. Challenge rating half. It's on page 269 of the monster manual. I don't know why they do these sorts of things. I don't think challenge rating should be allowed to be used as a metric sometimes. This is an extremely deadly to deadly fight for 3 to 5 characters. That's right, extremely deadly to deadly fight. So why are they including them? Because they're trying to make it a deadly and dangerous place, probably. Okay, so shadows have a wide range of damage type resistances, okay? Not only do they have a wide range of damage type resistances, they have damage type conditions, and so these are immunities to conditions and damage types up the kaboo. This is actually a very, very nasty monster. It's not the sort of thing you should sort of just look at and think, oh, it's only a challenge rating half, we're all good, because it doesn't work that way. What's worse is the Shadow Stealth ability will likely grant the Shadows surprise in a combat, and their attacks will drain the player's character's strength if they are successful, which is horrible to have, particularly for somebody who is running a melee or close quarter combat character class. I recommend removing between 1 and 3 shadows depending on the party size. So if you have a party of, say, 3 players, remove 3 of the shadows. Okay, if you have a party size of, say, 4 players, take away 2 of the shadows. If you have a party size of 5, take away 1 of those shadows. For groups that are 6 or 7, they should be able to get through this, but it will be pretty rough because shadows, they really are a nasty monster. For encounter number 5, this is in area 33, the Cult Leader's Den. It has a mimic, one of my favorite monsters. It's a challenge rating 2. It's on page 220 of the monster manual. Okay, so even though it's one of my favourite monsters, you also got to understand that what's going to happen with a mimic. As long as you select a mimic for the right character level, then you're usually all right. If you don't, things can go wrong. They have selected only one mimic, challenge rating 2, so it does coincide quite nicely with the party's level. It's a hard to easy battle for 3 to 5 characters. Now, just because it's a hard to easy battle doesn't mean that things can't go wrong. Again, a standard mimic fight consists of this. One of the characters gets stuck to the mimic, and a few of the melee weapons get stuck to the mimic as well. Then the party will fall back and use missile fire to kill the thing because it moves so slow. It's a good strategy. It's usually the strategy that most groups will use to defeat the thing, but it usually means that one of the players will wind up at the mercy of the mimic. And it's entirely possible, if they don't kill the mimic fast enough, that mimic will have lunch and eat one of the characters. A mimic will not be a problem for a party unless the party is quite small or the party consists mostly of melee characters. Okay, if you have a lot of melee characters, then they are really at a huge disadvantage because they might not necessarily fall back on using a ranged attack, which is really the smart move in this case. Okay, encounter number 6. This is Area 34, the cult leader's quarters. It has 2 ghasts. They are challenge rating 2. You can find them on page 148 of the monster manual. Okay, so this is yet another one of those situations where it's about putting too many things in the basket when they should have put less in the basket. It's a very deadly to deadly combat for 3 to 5 characters. That's right, very deadly to deadly combat. Now, the thing with a ghast is it doesn't just have the ability to paralyze its victim. The ghast has a stench, which often dungeon masters will forget about. It also has the ability to use turning defiance. So if a cleric tries to turn this creature, they can defy it. It makes it much harder to turn this creature. And those paralyzing claws can easily neutralize a few characters, and small parties could quickly get ripped apart. So given that, you do need to be very careful when you're using a small party. I recommend removing one of the ghasts, or if you don't want to remove one of the ghasts and you want to keep 2 ghasts, then reduce the hit points for the monsters by half. Just reduce the hit points so that they die a bit quicker rather than stick around too long. They can still do an awful lot of damage even with that being put in place. Okay, encounter number 7. This is Area 38. It is the ritual chamber, and it has a shambling mound. Oh, God. Why do they do this thing? Okay, so it's a challenge rating 5. That's right. Your characters are level 2, and this is challenge rating 5. It's on page 270 of the monster manual. Frankly, I wonder why even we have game designers sometimes. This monster is beyond deadly. It's not very deadly, it's not extremely deadly, it's beyond deadly, and it will TPK or total party kill the whole group with its truckload of hit points, 2 brutal slam attacks, its engulfing feature, plus it has resistance to cold and fire damage, and if the players are really unlucky and somebody unleashes lightning damage on the thing, the lightning damage will heal it. And that happened to my group. And frankly, I can tell you now, they were very, very upset when that happened. The players are better to flee the ritual chamber rather than stick around and try and fight this creature. It's way beyond their capacity to deal with. Dungeon Masters, I recommend that you modify this monster, okay, reduce hit points, change a few things, or remove the shambling mound completely from the adventure, don't even use it, and just consider it an accident in many cases. And it won't detract from your adventure. Honestly, there's enough nasty things that will happen after this that they don't have to have the shambling mound as well. Okay, now that all of the party's resources are depleted and they have to try and escape the death house as it tries to slice them into mincemeat, Gosh, that's like another topic in itself. Trying to escape the death house is bad enough. We try to get through the dungeon. We've got through the dungeon. Now we've got nothing left. This is what happened to my group. They had almost no hit points left. They had no healing resources left. And then suddenly they had to escape the house. And it's a real mess. And that is going to be saved for another time, that topic. Bonus tip. This is my bonus tip to you. Drop or leave potions of healing in rooms as the players explore the dungeon if you find that their healing resources have been expended or their hit points are running low. It's an easy fix. You can do that on the fly, and it will solve many of your problems and alleviate a lot of the stress the players will go through, and you have control of that rather than allowing your party to take short and long rests in the death house, which you will find if they are allowed to do that, they will just keep taking short rests for as long as they possibly can, or even long rests to get through the house. Of course, that's probably not what we're trying to look for. Okay, if you found this video useful and helpful, fantastic. I have a video on the death house and how to deal with the encounters in that area. That's the top level. I have a whole bunch of videos for the Curse of Strahd, Dungeon Master advice, player advice. You're welcome to check those out. I have hundreds of videos for players and Dungeon Masters on every aspect of Dungeons and Dragons, and you can watch those if you like. If you want to support the channel so I keep doing video content like this, you can do that through Patreon. I have affiliate links to Amazon. I have merchandise shelf underneath all of my videos, or you can just share, like, and subscribe. Hit the bell button if you want to. That's all good. Watching my videos is always really useful as far as I'm concerned, because it means that I've still got an audience watching and I know what I'm doing is actually being useful to you. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.